What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Lupinranger vs. Patoranger episode 13. This episode is called Best and Worst Holiday, and this episode overall was pretty good. It was nice because this episode actually had Umaka and Tsukasa working together both in real life and also as in the Ranger forms, which is very cool. I like that whole idea. My only bitter feeling towards the episode overall was just some of the humor. Again, the show likes to have these weird kind of humor bits, which sometimes are good, sometimes could be a lot better. Again, I'm looking back at the episode with like the gender swap bit, really was unnecessary. But again, I'm not going to complain overall. I think that it's an interest that, the humor is interesting and they do certain things really well. And this episode had some great fight scenes. It had some good story here and there. And, it was nice to just see the teams kind of working together in some capacity. Again, are they going to work together in the end? Yes, that is definitely going to happen. It's just, you have to keep in mind that it's not going to happen for quite some time. So it's kind of nice to see this now because I'm not expecting us to actually see the two teams on the same side till, I think it's supposed to happen in July or so. Yeah, I believe July is when we're supposed to expect it. So, it's not that far away, but it's sometime in the 20s, and we're right now in the early 10. So keep it in mind that it's kind of nice to just see that. But anyway, moving on to the actual episode itself, it starts off with us seeing that the Lupinrangers, the male Lupinrangers and the male Patorangers are asking about, they're talking about where their female ranger is. In Umaka's case, she's doing errands. In Tsukasa's case, it turns out that she's on a paid vacation, so it's not like she's coming in late or anything. Like, she's all about being by the book or whatever, and in reality she's doing stuff where she's not getting herself in trouble. So that's kind of a nice thing and an important thing to keep in mind. But what we do end up seeing is that they're each actually going to be at the same place. In fact, they end up at an amusement park near a ticket booth where it turns out that they're both planning on getting a stuffed animal by riding all the amusement park rides in order to get a certain stuffed animal. And they're both like food-based stuffed animals. Like, they're food and a cute animal kind of combined together. So what does end up happening is that they each end up asking for the ticket at the ticket booth. Thing is that both ticket counter attendants basically say, we have no more single tickets. There are pair tickets, and at that point the two of them end up having to pair up to work together and go through all the attractions, which is kind of an interesting thing, obviously set up pretty specifically for this episode. And what we do end up seeing is that they go on different rides, they go on roller coasters, they go on all sorts of different attractions, and we get to see how they interact with each other, which is kind of a nice thing to see. Now, at the same time, what we also end up seeing in the gangler base is that there is a monster known as, and keep this in mind, I don't speak Japanese, so if I pronounce it wrong, just bear with me. I believe the pronunciation is Nayo Kapija, and it's like a cat ninja kind of gangler monster, which is it actually is a really cool design. I think it's one of the better designs that we've had so far for the ganglers, which is pretty cool. I actually like that a lot. And what we actually end up finding out from this monster is that, like, most of the ganglers, their whole purpose is that they want to become the successor to Degranio, and in Nayo's case, she actually wants to replace Gochi and be his right-hand assistant and, take over for her. So she's more of like a jealous figure of Gochi, which is kind of an interesting thing. But of course, in the same situation, she still has to take over the human world in order to receive that right, which Degranio agrees to because, you never know. Of course, that is an interesting thing to see. So what we do end up seeing is that eventually we call it, Umika and Tsukasa end up heading off into a haunted mansion. They're eventually crept up by a fake zombie, and what ends up happening is that they both freak out a little bit, although Umika doesn't freak out too much, as opposed to Tsukasa, who really gets freaked out. And it's interesting because she immediately remembers how this reminded her of her friend that ended up perishing. And the thing is that she tries to comfort her in the same way that she comforted her friend. So she comforts Tsukasa that same way. And it's an interesting thing because, again, they're on opposite sides, yet obviously Umika knows who Tsukasa is as far as being a Power Ranger, but Tsukasa has no idea for sure who Umika is regarding her being a Lupinranger. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see. What we also end up finding out is the fact that the reason why Umika actually went for the stuffed animal had less to do with the fact that she really loves stuffed animals. I mean, we know that Tsukasa definitely does. Umika, the reason why she actually decided to get this is because it reminded her of her friend, because her friend loved stuffed animals and they used to go to the music parks all the time and have fun and do all this kind of stuff. And the thing is that her friend loves stuffed animals, so she thought maybe having it would remind her of her friend. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see, and it creates a whole other perspective and makes more sense, because it's like, why is she suddenly the one that's interested in stuffed animals, It's kind of nice to at least have some sort of continuity or perspective, I guess you could say. So what we do end up seeing is that from here, Nayo ends up using her abilities to create a big barrier to keep the Lupinrangers and the Power Rangers outside. Though, as we know, Umika and Tsukasa are still within the barrier, so they're kept in, but the other Lupinrangers and Power Rangers are trapped outside of the barrier. So what we do end up seeing is that eventually there are two guards, people that work inside the haunted mansion that they're in, or haunted house, and what happens is that they fall on the ground and basically say that a gangler's attacking. So that at that point Umika is told to hide, because obviously, as we know, Tsukasa doesn't know Umika is Lupin Yellow, so she automatically thinks to hide her. And at the same time, Umika ends up using one of the disguise costumes that are inside of the dressing room that she was going to hide in, or hide in at least. And what ends up happening is that she ends up using her masquerade mask with this costume that she finds to kind of portray herself. And what we do end up seeing is that Umika and Tsukasa end up having to fight Nayo. They do both transform, and what we do see is that they constantly butt heads with each other initially, until eventually Nayo actually ends up using her ability to kind of chain the two of them together, meaning that they can't escape each other because they're chained, and they try to use their own weapons to break the chains, but it doesn't work. So at that point, what all they can do is hope that maybe Nayo's weapons can actually destroy the chains, which that leads to them having to work together. So it's a very interesting thing from here. And what we do end up seeing as well is that the other Lupinrangers and the Power Rangers are contacted about the monster, and what we do end up finding out is that they head off towards where it is. And in the meantime, what we end up seeing is that Umika and Tsukasa have to fight alongside each other. We do see them transform. We see some very cool poses and cool moves from the two of them working together. There's even a moment where it looks like, where it seems that Tsukasa tries to protect Tsukasa tries to protect Umika, but in reality what she's doing is that actually Umika is giving up her mask and putting it in Tsukasa's dress. So then what ends up happening is that Nayo tries to attack, and when he tries to attack, Tsukasa pretends to get hurt really badly, and then what actually happens is that when they separate, and this happens after the chains are broken, that they end up having to, what ends up happening is that she fakes getting hurt really badly, and then from behind what happens is that Tsukasa attacks Nayo while Umika is being attacked by Nayo. And then in the meantime, what we do end up seeing elsewhere is that eventually the Power Rangers are constantly trying to break through the barrier, and then at one point when Sequoia and Kichiro are trying to do a attack together using their dial fighters, we end up seeing that Kichiro ends up using the they're using their trigger machines. What do you call it? Kairi ends up using the Cyclone dial fighter with the other two trigger machines to do a combined attack to destroy the barrier, which leads to the Lupinrangers trying to get ahead of the Patorangers and get into the building to help their comrades. In the meantime, the Patorangers have to catch up, so that's a very interesting thing to see. So then from here, what we do end up seeing is that after the attack was found out by Nayo, what we do end up seeing is that Lupin Yellow is pulled up by Toma, and then in the meantime, the Lupinrangers do their finishing attack. We actually see that Kairi ends up using the Kaito boost with the Scissor and Blade dial fighters to destroy Nayo in a basic form. We do also see the Lupin collection item taken by Umika, which is cool. It's seen for a very, very, very short time. I believe the Lupin collection item was something from like I forget which season it was. I totally recognized the Lupin collection item, but it was only shown for like 2 seconds. Like you barely saw it, if you saw it at all. But it is still kind of cool. But anyway, what we do end up seeing is that from here, the Patorangers come to Tsukasa's rescue, and while that's all happening, Gochi does arrive and decides to resurrect Nayo. And the thing is that it's kind of an embarrassing moment for Nayo because she's having to be resurrected by the one that she's trying to replace. And the thing is that kind of is, not something you would want to be. You wouldn't want to be in that position where you're being saved by the one you're trying to replace that you don't like at all. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. At that point, Nayo ends up getting big, and then at that point, the Lupinrangers end up using Good Striker to form Lupin Kaiser. We actually hear the Lupin Kaiser theme, which I actually love that theme a lot. It's really cool. They initially just used the basic combination, but then they switched to the Lupin Kaiser Cyclone mode, and then they switched eventually to the Lupin Kaiser Night mode, which is very cool. And they managed to finish Nayo after they destroy the chains that were bound to them. And at that point, they win. Everyone's happy. Things are good. We then end up seeing at the bistro that the Lupinrangers work at, that Tsukasa and the other Patorangers are there. And what happens is that Tsukasa is happy to see that Umika is in good health now and she's not hurt. And because the thing is that basically, from Tsukasa's perspective, she has no idea what happened to Umika after she ended up telling her to hide away. So the thing is that eventually Umika appears with a gift, which was the stuffed animals that they were trying to get before, and she got one for each of them, and the one that she gives is like this bred dog, I think, or something like that. And the thing is that when Tsukasa sees it, like, it's the cuter one of the 2 animals that were available. But Tsukasa's actually upset because she wanted the uglier one, which was like a pork tato, which was like a pig combined with like I forget what it was pork of some sort, but it was just weird. No, it wasn't a pork tato. It was I think it was a pork tato. It was like a pig combined with a potato, which was just very weird because it wasn't cute or anything, and it basically showed Umika basically feeling like she has a very unusual taste when it comes to cute animals. So it's kind of a weird thing to keep in mind, but it was okay. Like, that moment was okay, but it was something to see at least. As far as next episode goes, it does look interesting. We are going to be getting the Patorangers next dial fighters, not dial fighters, trigger machines, sorry. The Patorangers trigger machines. So, as we know already, each team has like their initial ones, which was Biker and Cyclone, but only the Lupinrangers have like their double one. By double, I mean like Scissor and Blade. Well, next episode, they'll be introducing the Patorangers trigger machine, which will, combination, which will be Crane and Crane and Drill, which the combination I believe is called when it combines with a mecha is called we call it Patoranger Strong. I believe that's what it's called. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. I would love to see how the Hisatsu boost will look like, because again, that's going to happen, I'm sure. How they'll use the drill and the crane to kind of work that into some sort of weapon configuration could be very cool to see. I'm looking forward to that overall, and I love to know your guys' opinions about this episode. Overall, I thought it was decent. I like the fact that we got to see the female rangers working together. Very nice. I definitely love when they show this kind of stuff, especially for a show like this where, you know, it's going to become a regular thing, but it's kind of nice to get a taste of it where they're still kind of at odds with each other, but they're also kind of working together in a way. And it shows, because there's definitely moments that were in here, like I forgot to mention, there was a moment where they end up breaking the chains and Umika goes in for high five, but Tsukasa is like, nope, that's not happening, because she still is someone that, you know, they're still against each other. And at the same time, Umika says, I know, I still might get back at you and find a way to use you. So in other words, they're still at odds, but like in almost a playful yet, you know, rivalry based way, in a way. Because like now it's less of you're my enemy and more of like you're my rival. At least from this episode, that's what it came across as. Does that mean that it will be that way in the future? Probably not, but it is an interesting point to keep in mind, and, you know, definitely something to remember. So please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I love knowing your guys' opinions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 1, and goodbye, guys.